I'd like to call to order the May 1st meeting of the Leavenworth County Commission, and we'll start with the pledge and a moment of silence. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moment of silence, and it will include into whatever you're doing, praying or otherwise. Put Bob into your prayers, please. Don't know what's wrong with him, but he's not here today, okay? I thank you again for being in attendance. I always think it's interesting. There was a little announcement down at the border recently. I know it doesn't have anything to do with Leavenworth, but it does have a lot to do with Leavenworth. They wave other flags. And it's a shame we don't make that compulsory that you wave the American flag, but that's all right. That's what we're here for, is to support the world. Okay, the first thing now is roll call. 2 commissioners in attendance, 1 absent. Mr. Smith and Mr. Klemper here. And before we have public comments, I want to make an announcement. Today is Law Day at noon in the number 2 jury room, and the public is invited. So anybody wants to learn about attorneys and law, go over there and listen to Judge Green give a little dissertation. And I think it's interesting. Judge Green probably doesn't like me, but that's all right. My son took his shot put record away, but that didn't last long. Some kid came in that's a professional, and I think he took it away by 4 or 5 feet. So that's the way progress is. And the other thing I wanted to mention before we start with the comments is we've got taxpayers of Leavenworth County got a very nice letter from St. Vincent's Clinic thanking them for funding St. Vincent Clinic. Okay, any comments from the public? Joe, you have anything today?
No, thank you.
Okay. Always worry when Joe doesn't comment. Public comments is gone. Administrative business.
Well, since you made the announcement on the Law Day, I guess I'll just add that today is also the county clerk's birthday, so I'm not sure which is more important, but maybe they'll speak about that as well.
No, it's her anniversary. You only have one birthday. That's the day you're born. Happy anniversary, clerk.
And I think the county councilor has something to discuss on the district corner.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Smith, good morning. Last week, the board adopted Board Order 2018-3 designating Gary McIntosh to be district coroner for the 1st Judicial District. In discussing the matter with Dr. McIntosh and also with another physician, Dr. McIntosh had not taken the oath of office, so technically he has never been your district coroner. I would like you to consider Board Order 2018, Becky, would it be 4? 4, designating Dr. Altaf Hussain to be the district coroner. This is a matter of meeting the technical specifications of the office. I do apologize for the confusion in bringing you 2 orders within a week, but I believe this will put the 1st Judicial District online to have a district coroner for the 4-year term.
Okay.
I thought he was going to do
It's
that
nice
later.
that we have occasional mix-up. They do at the federal level and state level, so
It proves that I'm human.
you're human. That's good. I'll entertain a motion to accept Board Order 2018-4.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
And I'll second it. And how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Sign that, please. We'll just put that there, right? Excuse me. Next will be the consent agenda.
Commissioner, we do have one item on the consent agenda that has been asked to be removed.
Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. I'd like to pull this because we are still working on an agreement. If you look at the plat,
You want to tell them which plat you're discussing?
it's our twins, case number 18-025 and 026. It's our twins park. It's basically a two-lot subdivision. According to the 2440 study, additional right-of-way was required on the northern part of the lot because there's a future road that needs to be constructed there because it joins the adjacent Bayside Drive. So Public Works and the county councilor and also the applicant is working on an agreement within the right-of-way. So that hasn't been done yet, but what we are proposing is they can still work on it, agree upon it, and then add that before they record the plat. So if the commission chooses, they can still approve the plat, but the agreement will be added later.
That right-of-way wasn't obtained when the subdivision was done and you're talking about Bayside Drive going out to 178?
Yeah, that's on the west side.
Yeah.
This is the east side. They're proposing to divide two lots. Right now, it's just one lot, so they're proposing two lots, and so it lines up with Bayside Drive.
Oh, okay.
I have a question. Is that 2526?
Yes, that's the case.
Yes,
number.
2526, yes.
Our twins part.
Okay.
I think it's probably best just to remove it from the consent agenda and then
Okay.
consider the rest of the consent agenda.
Well, I had 1617 on the consent agenda.
Yeah, you have 16, 17, 8, and 25, 26, and 27, 28.
Right.
We're just asking that 25, 26 be removed from the consent
Okay.
agenda.
Do you have any problem with that?
No, sir.
Do we need a motion to remove that? Your choice.
No, you don't need a motion to remove something. If you
It's
just-
removed, okay? Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to, can we go in order? And I can get rid of this paperwork here. On the first item on the consent agenda was the minutes. Do you have any corrections or anything?
No, sir.
Okay. Neither do I. Schedule for next week. I don't have any problems. I have a problem with this week. The LCDC is going to meet on Thursday. Nope, that's next week.
That's next week. It's on the
Yeah.
10th.
Okay, throw that away, but are there any meetings coming up the rest of this week?
County Road 1
Yeah, the county road will
Order,
study
yeah.
tomorrow.
and I believe Linwood City Council will be tonight.
Okay, I will not be at either one of those. I have
Okay.
a more important mission than that.
And next Monday it'd be Tonganoxie City Council.
Right. Check register, I want to point out again, for those that listen to the meeting and those that attend, we just spent $121,000 on 147th Street. Again, I want to change my name to Rock. We spent another $19,000 for Rock, $20,000 for meals, $36,000 for rock and filter for roads, $19,000 for rock. Don't we have a movie actor called The Rock? Yeah.
A long time ago.
Oh, his big mustache.
Oh,
Uh,
So like you.
okay.
$42,000 for Silverado. Can somebody explain that? Hot shot delivery system. That one I didn't understand.
That's the vehicle for the catering truck for
Okay.
Council on Aging. It's
Council on
purchased
Aging.
with donated funds.
The hot shot that confused me. I thought-
That's the insert for the catering.
Very good. 17,000 for the rock again. 43,000 for culverts, and 25,000 so the visitors at the jail can be real comfortable. I think that's very nice. So it comes to, throwing everything else is $463,225 that the county has spent. Going to sign the OCBs, and now we have another case, approved case number DEV 18-016/017.
There's no, since it's on the consent agenda, there will be
Okay, so
No
there's nothing to
public
be
hearing.
discussed?
Unless you have questions.
Okay, takes care of that. And the next one is 2728. That's a preliminary and final plat for is that Dongi?
Van Dam.
Dongi Estates, and excuse me, the one prior to that was for the final plat for our Twins Park.
That's the one
No,
that
that's
we're
what we're doing.
pulling.
Excuse me,
be
that
the
was for
Wooded Three
Wooded
Estates.
Three Estates, preliminary and final plat. Do you have any questions?
No, sir.
I'll go with motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second it. How you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Formal board action. Consider a motion to approve purchase of a roll-off containers for solid waste division from Waste Quip in the amount of $24,571.
That'd be Mr. Lujan.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning, David.
The transfer station would like to replace roll-off containers that were purchased in 1997 and 2000. There's $24,122 available in depreciation for the replacement. This would purchase 3 30-yard, 1 20-yard, and 1 38-yard container. We received 3 bids. The low price was Waste Equip at $24,571. The amount above depreciation would be paid out of this year's budget.
Do you have any question?
Are you gonna purple wave the old ones?
Likely, yes.
Okay. Or convert them into recycle bins?
Yeah, if we have a use for them, we'll use them. If not, they'll likely get purple waved.
Okay.
The only question I have is it always says things like the remaining funds needed would come from the 2018 budget. What part of the budget?
There's, what is it? There's a parts or an equipment line item in that budget. We're only talking $400 or $500 additional that needs to come out of
Okay.
this year's budget.
And they're located out at the transfer?
Transfer station, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I'll entertain a motion to accept the bid.
I move we approve the bid for the roll-off boxes for public work, for solid waste.
Okay, for Waste Clip and amount of $24,571.
Yep.
I'll second that. How do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Next is consider a motion to approve disposal of a 2006 Komatsu. Anybody wants to know how to speak Japanese, it's very simple. All their words are really defined so you can speak them. Yamaguchi. So, we're going to dispose of a 2006 Komatsu excavator to be listed on Purple Wave.
Yeah, the Public Works Department purchased a new excavator this year. The excavator has been purchased and delivered to the department, is in being used. Request approval to list the 2006 Komatsu on Purple Wave. Due to the expected sale price, we have to get board approval to list it.
Any questions?
No, I remember when this was purchased new.
And why did we have a hearing on that? Can you answer that?
Why did we have to come here? Because we expect it to be, we expect it to sell for around 50 grand or maybe even a little higher.
Okay.
Because of that, we have to get board approval, and it has to be advertised in the paper for once a week for 3 weeks, I believe.
Very good. I just wanted the population to know that. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve Public Works to dispose of a 2006 Komatsu excavator.
I'll second. How do you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next is a Community Corrections Quarterly Report. See how much harder it is for English compared to Japanese or Nihongo?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So today we're here for our quarterly report for the adult community corrections. For personnel, we've completed some trainings. The case management training, which was a webinar, was actually offered through the American Justice Association, so it was actually a federal webinar training that we were able to attend. On the 25th of February, I did celebrate my 10-year anniversary with the county. We also do self-appraisals in our office. That kind of just gives everybody the idea of what growth they would like to be able to do, and we do those every quarter. So our staff had those due and presented to me on the 2nd of March. And then I completed my annual evaluation with Mr. Lafferty on the 12th of March. For the business under the Department of Corrections, we did have a conference call for our budget on the 17th of January. We completed our quarterly reports that were due the 31st of January, and we also had a director's meeting in Topeka, which was on the 7th of March. For county business, we attended the department head meeting on the 1st of February. I had a previous quarterly report on the 6th of February, and then Rhonda attended our benefits policy as a representation of the agency on the 28th of February. For budget update, we are at 24% of our budget still remaining, which is $55,908.92. This is as of April 19th. Again, our fiscal year runs from July 1st to June 30th, so we are in our last financial quarter for that. For behavioral health grant, we are also sitting at 50% with $21,105.46 remaining. And I just added this as a quick update. We did submit the budget for the behavioral health grant as well as the comprehensive grant that the board signed last week. Those were submitted on Tuesday last week, and those were due by today, so they were submitted a week early. And then we will be notified around July 1st of what monies we were awarded from those grants that were submitted. I've attached our average daily population. I've kind of started calculating that for about the last 14 years so that our agency kind of can see the growth that we've had for our population. So that is attached. But as of the 2nd of March, or I'm sorry, the 2nd of April, we were sitting at about 214 cases that the Leavenworth agency was responsible for. Of those, we had 11 that were discharged successfully, 6 of them that were sent to the Department of Corrections to do their original terms. We did have 28 cases that were sentenced to us this past quarter, and then we also had 23 cases transferred in from outside agencies to our agency for supervision. We still complete our monthly lunch and learns. We did have a lunch and learns with Minds Matters, which is a program that is used for individuals who have traumatic brain injury. We find that a lot of our population has received some form of brain injury that prevents them from remembering when appointments are, making sure that they have their basic day-to-day needs kind of met. So we have reached out and we are utilizing that program to try to help maybe have a little bit better compliance with our clients for reporting, for court dates, for making court appearances. So we've had a significant positive turnaround by being able to utilize that program. We've also reached out and we met with the Extension Office in February. With the Extension Office, they have a lot of programming that can be utilized for budgeting, just basic nutrition, growth, not only for nutrition as far as officers, that as far as stress eating or burnout or positive exercise, but they also have it for nutrition for families, how to budget on a lower income budgeting scale. So it was a lot of information that we've been able to pass down to our clients, especially with getting some of their tax returns on how to kind of budget and manage to get through for the whole year to fund their children's and their children's activities. So we are sitting at about 36 of our offenders that are employed. We do have 46 of them that are employable that we are working on trying to find better employment for them. And when I say better employment, we require that they work 32 hours a week or more. So getting employment that's not part-time, so that we're really working on reaching out to some of our businesses as well as making sure that we're matching offenders with the right skill sets when looking for employment. We've also continued our meetings with the jail, reviewing the clients that we have in jail as well as how their behaviors are and some of their support systems outside of the jail. We've continued to have our monthly staff meetings. We've continued to try to work with parole, with the Lansing Parole Office to do what's it's called CBI, which is Cognitive Behavioral Interventions. We did start our second Thinking for a Change group on January 26th within our agency. They actually just had their graduation last week. We've had our advisory board with the representatives from the community on January 16th. We met with Cornerstones, which is a program that's mostly out of Wyandotte County and Johnson County, as well as Platte County. They do services a lot like our KVC or our DCFS here, but we do have some individuals that live in our community that are partaking in those programs in those other areas that would need UAs done in order to monitor the supervision of their children. So we've set up an agreement to be able to do an on-call UA collection for them. Again, we did complete our comprehensive plan and behavioral health grant. We've completed all the quarterly reports, and we are still participating in a new pilot program for a new urinalysis testing system. So we're still in the midst of collecting all the data from that for a review. Some of the goals that we've had throughout the last year is that we're still working on our audit procedure. We still do our file reviews and our documentation or our chrono reviews every month. We're still working on a sanction and an incentive report for our offenders. We're still working on our Thinking for a Change and our substance abuse groups that we facilitate, working with the parole office. We're looking at possibly trying to find additional grant funding for setting up some specialized courts, such as either a veterans court, a drug court, or a mental health court. We're working on the contracts and memorandums of understandings with agencies that we do have services with. We're still working with the corrective action plans and our Senate Bill 123 reports. We're still working with employers in the community on federal bonding and tax credits for employers. Jamie is going to be looking at going into the Offender Workforce Development Specialist training starting in July. We're still working on more training opportunities, programs with the grants, working on a better referral system with the Guidance Center, and we're still setting up our lunch and learns. And the new project that I've kind of started taking on is I'm looking at who we've had accepted into our program over the last 10 years as far as seeing how many people return back to our our caseloads, what kind of cases, why, and kind of maybe seeing if we can start putting in some different prevention programs to maybe have them really stop coming back to our caseloads. So that's kind of what I'm working on now.
Any question?
Just one?
Okay, we gotta slow it down, because,
We got a lot to, we got a sewer district work session.
well, that's true.
If you're gonna make this judge's deal, you're gonna have to hurry. Alliance Against Family Violence, you know, it's getting about budget time again. Are we gonna have something in place?
I'm not sure. I am no longer on the board. All of that was sent over to the state of Kansas, which is under the Kansas Coalition of Sexual Assault and Domestic Violence, or KCSDV. To my knowledge, I have been informed as of today that they do have board members, and they were hoping to maybe get on the agenda today or soon to be able to maybe put a proposal together to the county to see about possible funding. What details of that are where there is, I'm not 100% aware of, but I do know that the individuals that have notified me have provided those individuals, such as talking to the county administrator, talking to the state, and seeing what plan or proposal is in place so that that can be presented to the board.
Okay, because like I said, our funding's still in place.
We just received an email from them just a few minutes before coming into this room. So you'll have that. It's in your inbox now, I'm sure.
I don't have my phone. All right, sorry. Guess I didn't have a question, Commissioner.
Okay, well, you cleared up OWDS, you know, all those things. Well, what's that? You know, always talk about the SOB. We all know what an SOB is, but no, we don't. Souls on board, that's the aviation world, and shortness of breath. So it's nice to explain that, so, but you answered that, and I noticed up above you had a pilot program, and, you know, I really wasn't invited, you know, there may be some other pilots in here that would like to know about pilots. So, I thank you, you did good. We've been talking about, we need to hand out more pink slips, and you corrected your last two dissertations with 3 sheets of paper, and that's very good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
for the
Megan.
report. Okay. Next is Charles Wallace, Parker, Carousel Museum funding request. And here comes Mr. Parker. No, that's not Mr. Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Tony Baker. I'm the chairman of the steering committee for the C.W. Parker Carousel Museum. I submitted a request for a county grant to help us upgrade our HVAC. We've had continual problems with our initial units that were put in the building when we built it back in 04 and 05. At the time, our contractors and the HVAC people suggested we go total electric and put in heat pumps. And at the time, maybe the information wasn't totally available like it is today, but we find out, and our bills show it, that heat pumps are only good to about 50 degrees at maximum, and at that point it goes downhill, and at like 37 degrees, they're pretty much totally worthless as far as the heat, the cost of producing that heat compared to other means of heating the building. We've had to replace 2 of the big 15-ton units with 4 7.5-ton units, and they seem to be working fine, but we just cannot seem to get beyond the point of the cost of running these heat pumps. When we have winters like we did last winter and 2 years ago, where we sustained days of below zero, just day after day after day, heat pumps are just running constantly. Even when we're not open. January we're closed except for work days. And this last January we got an electric bill of $4,000, which was considerably more than the year before. The cost or the amount of the grant I requested was for $78.82. There would be an additional couple $1,000s that wasn't included in that cost because we didn't get estimates on running the gas line from the meter to the actual mechanical room. And there would be some other miscellaneous expenses that go beyond that, and we have the funding to pay whatever amount that's necessary to complete the project over and above the request for the grant. I think I've gone through most of the information in my grant request, so if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Any questions?
No, sir.
Only other thing,
Oh,
a couple
go ahead.
things that came up that I didn't include in that was, and I thought you might be interested just as a matter of statistics. We are a totally volunteer organization. We have no paid director or staff. We're open 5 days a week, roughly 30 hours per week. We have 40 volunteers. We've got several people coming as far as Liberty, Missouri, one from Kearney, from Stillwell, Kansas, and Shawnee, Kansas, and of course a lot of Baser and other people that live outside the city limits, but within the county. We're always looking for more volunteers, naturally. Our expenses for 2017 amounted to $207,000. Most of those are fixed expenses. We have a mortgage of payment of $43,000. Our insurance is $14,000, and Westar is $21,000. And the balance of that, it goes to the normal operating expenses, repairs on the carousel, that kind of stuff. In 2017, our visitor count was 27,000 people. Since we opened in 2005, we're just about to reach the 300,000 mark. We should reach that sometime in the next month, I think. I got around to taking a tally for the first 4 months of this year. We recently passed a state-required inspection of our carousels, which the whole process is a result of that young child that got killed down at the Slitherbaum. State required that any motorized amusement type ride be inspected. We don't really consider our carousels amusement rides. They're actual artifacts, museum artifacts, but nevertheless, we had to pay almost $400 to get ours inspected, and we passed no problems at all. So we didn't anticipate any problems, and we didn't have any. So that's a good side for us. That keeps us open. Summertime's the best time of the year for us, as vacations, as that time of the year is about to start again. So we're looking for a good summer. Hopefully not too hot, so that we can maybe make up some of that $2,000 more that we end up paying for heat. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Well, you said 7882.22, and then could be extra in the $2,000 worth of other.
Yes.
So I have a question on the Schlitterbahn. Did anybody from Topeka come and approach us
Yes.
and talk to us?
Yes, Marley James, she's the coordinator for the state for amusement rides. She's also contacted the carousel in Topeka, Gage Park, and the Parker Carousel down in Abilene at the I think it's Dickerson County Historical Society. We used the same inspector that they used. They were well pleased with him. He's out of Wichita.
Okay.
And the state furnished a list of like 20 people, 25 people throughout the United States that were qualified to make these inspections.
Right.
And this guy was fairly close. And I've submitted all the paperwork to her last Wednesday or Thursday, and at some point she will issue a certificate of inspection that has to be affixed to each machine. There's a lot of additional signage we have to post. Our responsibilities, the rider's responsibilities, what to do in case of an injury, who to report to, and all that kind of stuff. Which
Very good.
we're in the process of figuring out whether they're going to furnish some kind of signs that have exactly what they want in it, or whether we have to make it ourselves, and I haven't heard back from her since then. But
Okay, I was just hoping that, you know, it wasn't just something that she threw out there, that they approached. I think we do have the oldest in operation, do we not?
we do in Kansas.
Yeah,
I think.
that's all we're worried about.
But, you know, it's one of those things, it's a terrible accident, and we didn't feel that we should fall under it, but that argument kind of went on deaf ears, so, you know,
Yep.
we
Okay.
went ahead and got right into it, and got done what we had to do. And we didn't think we had any troubles, but this certified that we didn't, so
Very good.
we're in good shape.
We're going to put that in with the other 5 requests that we have, I guess
Okay.
5, and we will make a decision next Tuesday of who gets what and where, and appreciate you coming in, giving a dissertation.
This is exactly though what I figured the fund was for, though.
Yep, that's what it's for. So, that and attorneys. No, that's good. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you, sir.
Speaking of the grants has, while you're here, I wanted to make sure that the whole community knows, I personally would like to see them come in at budget time for
Yeah.
requests for the following year, because, you know,
Right.
we had Linwood that came up with a thought. So it'd be nice if all the people wanting grants would be prepared to come in next year, give a dissertation on how we could help. I think it would also be beneficial if all those requesting grants would go to their city councils.
I agree.
You know, they need to get involved in helping all their museums come to pass. Oh, I get to watch a movie. Very good. So, if we can get that word out, I don't know how you want to get it out, leave it for, you know, flip the coin, however, how we want to do that. So, the next is the Kansas City Area Transportation Authority presentation.
Yes. Hi, I'm Sean Strait. I'm the planning manager with the Kansas City Area Transportation Authority. We operate and manage the Ride KC bus system. We just completed a plan for transit in Leavenworth County in coordination with the city and the county and other stakeholders. So this is a presentation to kind of recap that process and talk a little bit about the recommendations and ideas moving forward.
Hit me with your name again, please.
Sean Strait.
Sean.
Yes. And I have my contact information at the end of the presentation here. So a little bit of background about us. So there are essentially 5 public transit providers within the Kansas City region that all fall under this Ride KC branding umbrella as of a few years ago. I'm with the KCATA. We operate the vast majority of transit service in the region, but we also have Johnson County, Wyandotte County Unified Government, City of Independence, and Kansas City Streetcar as well. So 5 providers, but we all kind of combine to be under the Ride KC brand. Operate about 16 million annual trips, and that comes out to about 45,000 average weekday ridership throughout our system. The vast majority of that is within Kansas City, Missouri, and that's that's by far our largest contract with the community, and the location with the most transit service and transit usage. So we are created by a bi-state compact, and we cover a 7-county area, and that includes Leavenworth County, even though we don't actually currently have service in Leavenworth County. So a little bit about existing service. So of course in the county we have the Council on Aging Senior Transportation Program, which is a very critical and important program for the county, but it is limited in terms of the amount of service it can provide, and the population is limited to seniors. So we felt that there was probably a need beyond that for more general public transportation, and so the study focused on some of those ideas about how that could be done. So there's no existing public transit in Leavenworth County. We do have routes The closest routes that we offer go to the Village West area in Unified Government, primarily the 101 State Avenue route that connects through KCK all the way to downtown Kansas City, Missouri. We have a route going to the airport up to KCI, the 229, and a variety of services to Boardwalk Square, which is I-29 and 152 highway. So the purpose of this plan is basically to see how we can connect Leavenworth to the regional transit system and also provide some level of public transportation service within Leavenworth County, knowing that there's a growing demand for access and growing employment and destinations in the county. So the study was about a 5-month process from August to December of last year, with our final report being completed in January. This plan consisted of quite a bit of public engagement, and this occurred through our Stakeholder Advisory Committee. The county planning staff, Jeff and Stephanie, were on that committee and participated in each of our meetings, gave us a lot of useful input along the way. So we had 3 meetings of that group. That included the city, county representation, KCATA, Unified Government Transit staff, as well as some other stakeholders and business owners throughout the community. We also held a series of pop-up public meetings. So instead of saying, come to the library at 6 o'clock and hear this presentation, we went to where the people are. So we went to Price Chopper on a Saturday, we went to the St. Joseph Community Mill, and to the University of St. Mary, 3 different occasions to actually go to where people are and get their ideas and thoughts about public transit. We had an online survey. We received almost 500 responses to that, and quite a bit of social media outreach as well in order to get feedback from people. So some of the input, I won't go through this in a lot of detail, but essentially the survey respondents generally believe that there's a high need for transit service within Leavenworth County, and that it should be connected, accessible, convenient, affordable, and really focused on workers, lower income individuals, students, and persons with disabilities were seen as kind of the primary potential users of public transit in the county. Again, high need for service was something that we discovered through working with the committee and the public outreach that we did through the pop-up meetings and in the survey. There was some concern that the service operated could be limited in terms of budget available or number of buses operating on the route. People wanted to see a fairly robust system that would have to occur incrementally over time, so there was some concern about that. But people saw a lot of potential benefits of it. Reduced traffic, as mentioned by some people, but really the easier connections, the connections to the Kansas City area, particularly Unified Government, potentially at some point even over to Platte County, the airport, and other destinations in Platte County. Again, access to jobs, medical appointments, shopping for older adults, people with disabilities were seen as kind of the primary potential users of the service. This was the survey that we did. I talked a little bit about that, the potential riders, areas to serve, medical, employment, shopping, and we heard from a variety of people, residents of the county, people that work in the county, and also advocates and other stakeholders in the county. So some of the direction that was given to us and that we ended up coming up with our project team was essentially the high amount of need was seen as being kind of during weekdays during the day, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Our survey asked about weekend needs, evening needs, and a lot of people said that those were important, but the primary time is basically during the day on weekdays, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. was seen as the highest priority. Most people talked about buses on local streets. We did have a lot of people talk about connections between Leavenworth and other counties, but that was seen as kind of a secondary to needing some robust level of transit service operating within the county on weekdays. We asked a little bit about some features that people would like to see, ranging from the type of routing, direct routing, type of schedules that we could operate, real-time information signage, Wi-Fi on buses, and those are things that people like and would like to see in a transit service.
Question,
Yes.
who can ride?
The recommendations that we have would be open to the general public. Anybody could ride. Yep.
It's just interesting, all of a sudden we're not going to be politically correct.
What's that?
I thought, you know, maybe we weren't going to be politically correct and we were going to say this group couldn't or this group.
No, the idea of this is this would be general public transportation.
Thank you.
So some of the data that went into the analysis is the employment profile of the county, looking where people live and where people work within the county, and also getting into the what's called the inflow-outflow analysis, basically how many people live in Leavenworth County and work in the county, but also how many people are traveling to other counties to work or traveling from other counties into Leavenworth County, and found that there's quite a bit of outflow, meaning a lot of Leavenworth County residents are working outside of the county and looking at ways to better meet those needs. A series of maps that you can't really read very well, but the idea is to show some of the data analysis that went into this. We have older adults, census tracts with a higher percentage of older adults, persons with disabilities, the map on the right, persons with low income is the map on the left, and then zero vehicle households. So these are essentially some of the parameters that tell us which areas are people most likely to utilize public transportation service, which areas have the highest population, employment density, seniors, households without vehicles. Those are obviously groups that are more likely to utilize a public transit service. And if you were to kind of overlay these maps on top of each other, you would find that really the greatest amount of need is within the city of Leavenworth and primarily kind of the northeast quadrant within the city of Leavenworth, but also a decent amount of need throughout the city of Leavenworth and Lansing as well. So getting into some of the recommendations, we essentially have two alternatives that were developed as a part of the plan and vetted through the advisory committee. Alternative one would be an intra-community circulator. So this would be a smaller on-demand vehicle, on-demand bus that people could reserve from their place of residence to their employer. So this would be direct curb-to-curb service that people could call and reserve a trip. This is a suggested service area. It's by no means a final area. If and when we're able to move forward, we'll work with the cities and the county on better refining this and what are some locations outside of this green area that would be important to serve. The idea is to basically identify the areas with the highest amount of need, but also connect people to major community destinations, libraries, major employers, shopping destinations like Walmart is on there, the VA hospital is on there, St. Mary's is on there. So that's essentially what went into the development of this draft service area. So this would operate with two vehicles. These are, again, smaller buses, 12 to 15 passenger, Monday through Friday, 12 hours a day. A little more detail about this. That's a picture of essentially the type of vehicle that we would recommend for that type of service. It's able to flex, it's able to travel through, unlike our large buses, it can travel through a residential street and pick somebody up at their curb. And there would be some sort of scheduling and dispatch that would need to occur either from our office or if there were a private provider that were identified for that service, there would be essentially a dispatcher that would let the driver know where to go to pick up the riders. On the right, I've just provided an example of one of our existing flex routes that would be fairly similar to what this alternative would be. This happens to be the city of Raytown, where we have a boundary. Within that boundary, you can call and reserve a trip. Within Raytown, their times are only like 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. or 10 a.m. and then from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. So they actually have a gap in the middle of the day. We'd recommend in Leavenworth, based on what we've heard, being an all-day operation. But just an example of another city that we have a similar type of service.
These buses, they don't require CDL, right?
These particular ones do not, but a lot of our drivers that drive these vehicles also drive the larger buses, and a CDL is required for those. So most of them do have CDLs, yes.
Those 15 passengers is the limit on it.
Yeah. Alternative two is looking more regionally and looking at a fixed route service. So a bus that would have a defined route. It wouldn't be flexing onto residential streets, but it would have a defined route, a defined schedule, traveling from Leavenworth to the Village West area, at which point people can connect to various other routes and travel throughout the region. So this provides a greater amount of regional connectivity, Fixed routes tend to be easier to understand. You can look at a map and see where the route's going to be, as opposed to a flex where the bus could be anywhere at any given time. Disadvantages are obviously it doesn't have that flexible capability. It's not able to take reserved rides and pick somebody up at their front door. So again, this would be a fixed route operating with one bus, hourly service on weekdays. Just to demonstrate the different types of schedules that we looked at for such a route, on the left you see an example of one bus operating a route where it basically travels back and forth every hour. The schedule on the right shows what it would look like if you had service every half hour operating with 2 vehicles. Obviously the one on the right is about double the cost, is about double the amount of service. So the primary benefit of a route like Alternative 2 is it would connect people directly from Leavenworth County to the Village West area where they could connect to a variety of other routes. This picture is taken of our transfer center there at the Walmart near the Village West area where people can transfer primarily to the 101, which is the route that's shown on here, but also a couple of other routes operated by Unified Government. So getting into the estimated costs of these scenarios. So I showed you the schedule examples for the 2 types of connector routes, the 60-minute service, the 30-minute service. The one that we think is most viable, at least in the near term, would be the 60-minute service. And at the bottom, the circulator flex service, that was the alternative one that we talked about, operating with 2 vehicles, about $400,000 a year. There's a star there basically showing through our stakeholder engagement and public involvement, people saw that as being the most urgent, the most primary need in the near term, as opposed to the connector route. Most people would like to see a connector route eventually, but saw that as being something that was more long-term. So I will quickly talk about some of the additional recommendations of the study. So the primary focus of the study was looking at where public transit could succeed in terms of the amount of population and employment density. But we did look at other things, connectivity to the VA, for example, particularly between Platte and Leavenworth County. There are some van pool microtransit options, particularly we operate a van pool program that people could utilize, and we have had some conversations with VA about how to eventually move that forward to connect people, particularly from more rural areas in Leavenworth County or even from other counties to the VA, because we know that that's a major need. Also service to and from KCI. That's not one of our 2 alternatives that we recommend moving forward with, but was a consideration of the study and possible for long-term service because we know that that need exists as well. The rural connectivity, on-demand service, something that would be more county-wide as opposed to just within the city of Leavenworth. Obviously, when your service area gets a lot bigger, your costs get a lot bigger as well. You essentially need more vehicles to operate the same type of service. So we didn't feel in the near term that that was going to be really a cost-effective way to go, but it is something to look at in the longer term. Depending on how the service does in kind of a smaller area, it can perhaps grow over time. So how do we pay for this? So essentially public transit is, at least service that we operate, uses a mix of federal funding, a program in particular called the Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Grant. Sometimes those come along that we can apply to new routes such as this, so that's a potential opportunity. The state of Kansas has several different programs that fund public transportation. The one I have highlighted here I think is the most pertinent and I think is our biggest opportunity, the 5311 program. I'll get into the details of that on the next slide. There will need to be a certain amount of local funding as well. So all of our bus service that operates, we have a local community that's paying for a share of that route. So whether that be a combination of county and city funding, and so that would need to be determined moving forward. In this case, we think that that amount could be fairly minimal because of the grant opportunities that exist. We also have user fees. Obviously, there's a fare. Most of our routes have a $1.50 fare. And that it can vary quite a bit by route, but generally pays for about 10 to 20% of the cost of operating that route. Perhaps the potential for private entities or educational schools to be able to fund service. We don't currently have that with any of our existing routes, but that could be an opportunity as well. More on this 5311 program. So this is basically a program for rural and small urban public transportation. And Leavenworth County as a whole would fit within that definition. Funds are available for capital and operating assistance. Capital for if there would need to be some additional vehicles purchased as a part of the program, and the operating side, the day-to-day labor and fuel of operating the route. So this program is out there. Its applications are due late in 2018 for 2019-2020 state fiscal year funding. There's particularly for the operating, we could perhaps have this program pay for 70% of the cost of the route. So that would be the vast majority of the route, and the local share would be much smaller than it would be without this program. So I would open that up to future discussions between the KCATA, Leavenworth County, City of Leavenworth, City of Lansing, anybody else that's interested in service and moving forward and figure out how we implement and how we can pay for it. That's all I have. There's my contact information. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Why didn't you spell your name different?
What's that?
Why'd you spell it different, your name, Sean? You know, it's S-E-A-N.
That's how I wrote it down.
As you have to blame my parents for that one.
That's how I wrote it down.
Any
But
questions?
yeah, how does this duplicate what we already have with Council on Aging on some of it?
Well, that's what was going to be a follow-up on that is
Yeah.
not only do we have Council on Aging and Northeast Mental Health that I've discussed, some of these vehicles somehow could be utilized.
Yeah.
You know, we have our group of here and another group here, and of course, we're not talking about that many vehicles, but
Yeah.
still, it gets difficult, especially if you're talking about 25, a bus that holds 25. Now you're into the CDL.
Yeah.
In what is it, 2020 or 21, we're going to be 250,000 short
Yeah.
CDLs throughout the nation. So it gets very complicated. So,
Yeah. So kind of two different questions there as it relates to the vehicles and CDLs. There are multiple ways that the county and city could go. You could essentially contract with the KCATA. We have contracts with 10 communities in which we operate service. Uses our drivers. We essentially bill the community for the mileage that we operate within the community, less federal and state funding, and we think in this case could be a significant amount of state funding. Or you could look at other private providers. There are several other companies that operate service that we work with. Johnson County actually uses a private provider to operate all their transit service. They still fall within the Ride KC umbrella, but it's actually privately provided. The drivers and dispatch staff are through a company called First Transit. You could go that route. You know, some communities around the country have a department within the county or city government that operates the service. Now, if you utilize federal and state funding, there are all kinds of strings attached with that in terms of reporting capabilities and things like that. So there are all different options we could move forward with, and I think at some point we'd be interested in meeting with the county and the city on kind of working through some of those options and see what makes the most sense. The downside to utilizing the KCATA would be simply the distance. Our garage is near downtown Kansas City, and you'd essentially be paying for those buses to travel from downtown Kansas City to Leavenworth. You could potentially get a private provider that could open up shop within Leavenworth and have lower costs back and forth, you know, to and from the route. Other question was related to the Council on Aging. Council on Aging is an important program, but they are limited in terms of the amount of service they can provide and the population that can utilize it. So we see this as kind of an above and beyond need. That program would continue to operate, continue to do a good job, but we think there's demand beyond just that population and what they would have the budget to be able to provide for
I
themselves.
think that is referencing the fact that they have vehicles that aren't going
Yeah.
all the time, and same way with
Oh, okay.
Northeast Mental Health. They sit there.
That could be an option, yeah.
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 Has the VA thought about any kind of funds? I know we got a problem with who we're going to have as the director.
Yeah, there have been some conversations between the KCATA and the VA concerning van pool programs and how to have a kind of a specialized van pool program to get people to the VA. In terms of them providing funding, not aware at this point that anything's developed, but those discussions are ongoing.
Staff got any questions?
I
this time. I think
You don't want to vote to fund it?
No.
No. No, there's a lot of discussion needs to be done.
Yep.
I'd like to hear from Linda, Council on Aging Director. I'd like to hear her thoughts.
Well, I'd like to hear Northeast Mental Health thoughts.
Right.
I think that, I mean, one, we would probably like to see an actual proposal that has dollars associated with it on who's going to participate at what level. I'm familiar with the route that you actually used as a demonstration. I know the city of Raytown funds about $70,000 a year for that route. And I think the county funds a similar, maybe a little more because that route actually runs outside the city. But I think this is just a preliminary presentation about the demand. The number one identified user is elderly, number two is disabled, and there are two services providing those services already. Council on Aging for the elderly and the one that you present. So the top two identified user groups already have this service being provided to them. So I think if you take them out, I'm not sure that the demand is actually as high as what's identified in the study. And I think from a county participation standpoint, obviously we have to look at the entire county and how this serves them when I think the route that's proposed in this presentation, 90 to 95% of it is in the city of Leavenworth, and the other small route is the city of Lansing. So it really, our participation in this would, I think, has to really be evaluated.
Right.
And we do fund the Council on Aging through the county budget. So I think that's probably the largest transportation provided public, even though it's limited to the elderly right now. It is, I'm quite certain, the largest provider of transportation in Leavenworth County, and we do fund it already. And what we found out with that, it used to be opened up. Actually, the Council on Aging's transportation offered services to other people than the elderly, and funding-wise, it just wasn't working out.
And didn't we lose some KDOT funding?
It was a grant. We actually, the Council on Aging chose not to pursue that funding because of the other expenses and having to provide the service to everyone. And so they limited it to the just the service group that they're providing now, and their ridership went up. And when they started talking to people, what they found out is that the elderly weren't comfortable riding with the general public group. They're uncomfortable riding with youth and with other people. So once they went to just the elderly, they started riding it more. So actually, the demand went up, and I think that I've had this conversation with Linda over at the Council on Aging. I've discussed a little bit with Keith over at the Guidance Center, and I think that those are two kind of specialized areas of transportation, and they're also the two that are not identified as the top two users. And I think that there is a service out there. Maybe enhancing those two services might be something that needs to happen, but I think there's a lot of work to be done before we would need to probably consider it at the county level.
Well, I know it's not going to benefit my area, and nothing Baser, Linwood, or Tonganoxie is going to benefit from this.
Yeah, and when I looked at the study, one of the things that's talked about, I think maybe your second or third slide actually, was connecting to existing transportation routes, but then what's being proposed does not connect to existing transportation routes. So again, I think that's where the county is probably more interested and involved, is that we get all of our communities access to each other and to the other routes that then lead to job access, which is pointed out in here too. So again, I'm sure the service that they've identified for Leavenworth is what they believe they need, and I think that's great for them.
Right. Leavenworth will be the first to get this. But
Okay. Any other questions you have?
no, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Yep.
Next will be
A work session.
work session on sewers, and then prior to us departing, if you have anything to say, bring up about.
Okay. All right. And I do.
Just to start this off, this is a discussion that we've been having off and on at staff level for over a year now, actually probably a year and a half going on, about the sewer districts and just trying to establish maybe some long-term, long-range goals for how we handle them. I think we, at the staff level anyways, we're all in agreement that we would like to be out of the sewer district business at some point in the future. What staff has done is kind of looked at the districts that we have, where they're at, what the realistically can they connect to existing sewer service if they're not already, and this just to this also again kicking off the budget process where we're wanted to talk with the board about opportunities and the things that we're evaluating and see if there's anything that the board had input-wise that they wanted us to make sure we were looking at.
So currently the Leavenworth County has 3 sewer districts that we operate and maintain sewage lagoons on. Sewer district number 1 serves High Crest subdivision, which is located just west of the Lansing city limits off of Gilman Road. That lagoon has capacity for 84 lots. It's a low-pressure grinder pump system. Each house, there's a grinder pump located outside of each house. Low-pressure mains take the sewage over to the lagoons. The KDHE permit on all of our lagoons were just renewed, and they expire in 2021. Sewer District number 1 has a little over $56,000 in its reserve fund. The nearest municipal sewer system is the City of Lansing. I have been talking with the City of Lansing. The City of Lansing is a little hesitant about this sewer district because it is outside of their current drainage area. Sewer District number 1 drains to the southwest, flowing away from the City of Lansing. I did request that the city add that sewage flow to their model to see what happens downstream if their existing system could handle the additional flow. They have submitted a scope of services to provide an engineering study on the feasibility and costs associated with accepting the sewage from Sewer District number 1 into the city. The scope of services is in your packet. The cost to complete that study is $23,044. If the board chooses to proceed, we can bring that back at a later date for formal approval.
It'd be
How
during
many
the
of
budget
those
process.
lots are occupied?
The majority, there's only a handful of empty lots left in that subdivision.
So it's near capacity.
Correct, it's almost built out.
Is there going to be any problem getting it renewed in '21?
No, it shouldn't be. Well, we had no problems renewing it this last time. We don't foresee any problems renewing it again.
Okay.
Depending upon if we do move forward with the feasibility study, the goal would, I think our goal would be, if approved by Lansing to take, would be to try to get it shut down before that next review.
Is the lots available around the lagoons?
Yeah, there's a couple down in that area that are still unbuilt.
How's that reserve fund? What creates a reserve fund?
Money that's left over at the end of each budget year. If there's still funds available, it's rolled over into the reserve account.
So there's no lot holders paying into a fund somewhere, or is there?
Yeah, there's an assessment each year on their tax bill.
So
Each
that
sewer
assessment-
district has a sewer assessment.
So would that-
pays-
Sorry, go ahead.
It pays for maintenance of their grinder pumps, maintenance of the lift station, or the force mains, the lagoons.
So that would continue even if Lansing took over? There'd be.
There would probably be some sort of sewer district payment, yes. Those details would have to be worked out.
Yeah.
Sewer district number 2, it's located down in the southeastern part of Leavenworth County. It serves Timber Lakes and Walnut Ridge subdivision. That sewer system is a gravity system with multiple lift stations located throughout the area. That lagoon system serves 150 lots. That permit also expires in 2021. I have spoken briefly to the city manager of Bonner Springs, and he indicated that they are working on plans to install a interceptor up Wolf Creek, which this sewer district flows into. I need to get a meeting scheduled with them to sit down and see exactly what they have planned and the possibility of connecting this sewer into the city of Bonner Springs sewer system. And the reserve fund for that sewer district has a little over $100,000 in it right now.
Does the acceptance into Lansing or the acceptance into Bonner Springs, does that require something, vote of some sort from the 84 lots or the 150 lots, or is that just a commission through advisement?
Do they have an
Mr. Fund, I couldn't
HOA?
hear your question.
I just said the question. You expect me to, at my maturity, to remember it?
Well, in my maturity, my hearing isn't quite what it used to be.
If Bonner accepts it and Lansing would accept it, does that require approval from the 84 lots and the 150 lots?
It would, the process would require public hearings, both for the individuals directly impacted and for the city that would accept it. So it would be a very open process, but it would require public hearings, and there would be input from the citizenry.
Yeah, but no vote.
No, it's not a plebiscite.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Good word.
Do these have homeowner associations? These
I'm not
subdivisions?
aware if they do or don't.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, the last sewer district that we have a lagoon on is sewer district number 5. This serves Ginger Creek subdivision. Ginger Creek has 36 lots. This subdivision is actually located adjacent to a piece that is in the city of Basehor. City of Basehor does have a gravity line approximately 3/4 of a mile to the north. Ginger Creek is served by a gravity system that has just one lift station in it. We have at staff level had several discussions already with the city of Basehor. They seem to be willing to accept the sewage. We have a few issues as far as annexation, connection fees, things like that, that still need to be discussed and worked out. Upon approval from the board, which we'd come back for formal approval and formal action, but we would definitely like to start proceeding with the connection of sewer district number 5 to the city of Basehor.
Does the, I've always had a philosophy, of course it's mine, but I'll share it. We allow subdivisions to be built, and then it creates a problem. Should that be allowed in the future? Because that's the individual who wants to put in the subdivision, creating problems for the masses. So we all know it flows downhill. And then we get into grinder pumps. Same way as we got I think it's not a grinder pump out there in the industrial park. There's going to be
Lift station. Isn't that just a lift station?
a lift station, but it takes a pump.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering, is that something that should be looked at in the future as, right now they're on septic, so they're in a,
I don't think we're allowing any more of these. Is that
Sewer
correct?
districts? It would have to come to the board for approval.
Right.
yeah.
We haven't had any for years.
Right.
And one of the things with the, that we're proposing with the urban growth area is that the cities then be involved with that area, and then it'll be up to them to determine the best way to allow development to access existing infrastructure. Any new subdivision out in the county would have to come up to the board, and definitely something we'd want to take into consideration is whether we really want to continue to be in the sewer district business.
The one on County Road 5 with the nice houses. I don't know how many lots are out there.
Shenandoah?
See again?
The Shenandoah?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How many houses, we know, you have any idea how many houses in Shenandoah? And they're all on septic, aren't they?
No, those are on city sewer.
On what?
The ones on Shenandoah are on city sewer, city Leavenworth.
That's going out, where, Jerry built.
The Riley subdivision, Woodridge?
Yeah,
Yeah, those are all on septic. Those are minimum of
Oh,
2.5
you're
acre
talking
lots.
outside, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're large lots, so.
yeah, they're large lots. Somewhere, that was like down in a subdivision down off of, maybe Evans Road, I don't remember when it was, in the 80s or the 90s.
Briarwood.
It was overflowing, and the county, it was 2-to-1. To me, if you have a septic overflowing and flowing your neighbor, you gotta shut that down. We had one out off of 92 that was flowing,
Mm-hmm.
and 2 commissioners said, that's all right, let it flow into somebody else's yard, we don't care. And then there was one that said,
You can get an engineer to design a system that'll work. Just add more lateral.
okay, very good, sounds good. Go ahead.
That's about all I have, unless you have any more questions.
Okay.
Will any of
Either I
these-
do.
Yeah, will any of these be thought about prior to budget time, or?
Well, I think that sewer district number 5, definitely during the budget, we will be proposing that we start the process of connecting it to the city's sewer system. They have a lift station already. It's just a matter of installing the first main. It's the least costly of the group. And until we get down to where we have some actual numbers, it's kind of hard to determine if it's feasible or not, but we want to start that work to at least develop a plan. We'll continue to be in discussion with Bonner Springs if they are going to add an interceptor, then it would make a lot of sense for us to try to attempt to connect to that as well. And then the one that's just outside of Lansing, Sewer District 1, that's probably the one that we're the least decisive on, because it is outside their flow area. It's downstream from where they normally would, so it's going to require probably a pretty significant lift station with the distance that it has to go. And it's,
District 1 is required.
we're looking at a $24,000 expenditure just to determine if they would be interested in taking it.
Correct.
So that one, we're probably a little further out.
District 1's going to require a engineering study, but 2 and 5 don't.
At this point, I can't answer that on number 2. I haven't met with the city to discuss specifics.
Okay.
5, we probably need to go out for an RFQ and get an engineer on board so we can start getting costs put together on what that one will cost to construct.
Or we could hold off until 2020.
Well, we have some other issues with Sewer District 5 that are going to have to be addressed prior to then, that we'd rather just go through once, if possible. That's kind of why that one's kind of moved up on our list. There's some right-of-way that we're looking at having to require, and some easement that would have to be required. I shouldn't say right-of-way, it's easement.
Yeah.
I think a lot of these districts don't have any easement, and there's some Timberlake, and there's some lack of easements in Timberlakes also.
Yeah, I believe that lagoon is still on private property, yes.
No, I'm talking about the lines even.
Hey, I'm not sure about the lines, but I
Lack
know
of
the
utility
lagoons.
easements and
Yeah.
stuff running through people's backyards.
We are working on
Be a
5 to
problem.
get those issues addressed right now.
Okay. Would the city take that even if they did not annex that area?
That's one of the issues we need to get worked out.
Okay.
One of the discussion items with them. They've kind of gone, one time they said, no, we want to annex, another time said, well, if we don't, then the fees may be higher.
Well, we don't want to end up with another Sewer District 3 issue where the people have to pay for upgrading a line for future development. And we just don't want to go down that road again.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just concerns that
Yep.
the way Sewer District 3 was handled.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Are you guys on sewer district number 3?
We're not on Sewer District number 3, actually. It's not an item on our agenda today.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask for. Was, last year, when Mr. Gregory was here, he promised us we would have a work session on sewer district number 3.
Well, God bless his heart. What he promised you, you didn't get 2 promises. In this society up here, you gotta have 2 promises. If you have 5, you gotta have 3 promises. And if you got 7, you gotta have 4 promises. So, but I don't think that's a big deal. Mark, you can put that down and we'll discuss whether.
We're gonna have a work session before budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the sewer districts will be on during the budget process, and we'll have discussion if needed on those, but there's sewer district number 3, there's nothing for us at this point to address.
Okay.
So,
Yes, sir.
but we will have it on, during the budget.
Okay, we'll have a budget time. Very good. Okay, next is Commissioner's thoughts.
Oh, I did fail to mention Baser's City Council meeting on Wednesday night, and also Lansing's is Thursday. And I'd also like to talk about, you know, we had additional counsel assisting Mr. Ryburn on this lawsuit, and we lost the other attorney that we had helping with the case. I was wondering if we should add another attorney to help him with these lawsuits.
Well, you know, Jeff, you know Jeff?
Do I know Jeff?
Jeff Sessions?
Oh,
He just asked for 100.
no, I do not know him.
He just asked for 171 lawyers. And by gosh, I am in favor of supporting the legal facilities throughout the nation.
Okay.
Because I can't understand the Declaration and the Constitution and the 10 Commandments, so,
I just think our one attorney's having to deal with 3 attorneys.
yeah.
If we add, I think we were gaining some ground while we had 2.
2. Or
I'd
you
like to
can-
add another counsel.
Or you can have 1 and I can have 1.
That'll work.
But if you want to do a motion or something, I'll consider it.
All right. I'd like to make a motion to add another attorney to help Mr. Ryburn with the case. Says,
He says, I'll second that, under discussion.
all right.
Do we want to give some kind of direction, or what does staff need?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Smith, I think it might be appropriate at this time to have a motion to approve Commissioner Smith to locate and retain additional counsel to provide counsel with respect to ongoing litigation.
Okay,
And commissioners, I could do it for the commissioner, or the commissioner could do it directly.
I'd rather have the county counselor do that.
rather have county council do that, okay?
I can do
The
that.
senior county counselor do that.
Senior county council,
Thank you.
okay? Any other discussion?
No, sir.
John, you need a attorney on this? No, okay. Your motion is? to
That we
turn it
have,
over to the,
have our senior county counselor seek out additional attorney to assist Anderson Bird.
okay? How do you vote?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Anybody else need an attorney? Joe, you need an attorney?
He's probably got one.
Okay. Anything else that you want to bring up?
No, sir. I think we covered it all.
Okay. I have,
Are you going to be able to attend this?
yes, I'm going to,
Okay.
I have to go to that.
All right.
I had 50 lawyers call me and say they wanted me there.
Okay, that may not be a good thing, but that's all right.
Okay, what I've got, number one, I got to be the coach of Devontae, Fee, and Clay. And Tonganoxie had a very good event. They were raising funds, and the 3KU boys came up, and there were 7 per team, but the 3KU boys were on the Lansing team, and it looked like hail going into a bucket. I never seen so many threes in my life. It was amazing. And I was disappointed they didn't want me to play. And I could see why when I walked out and I was talking to all the players. But it was a very good event and well attended. I thought that was good. Next, as I said, next Tuesday will be where we distribute the funds
Yes,
for
sir.
the
Mhm.
entities. May 1st through the 3rd, 2018 is National Small Business Week. And we didn't fill out a form stating Small Business Week. Most important businesses in the world, believe it or not. So I just wanted to announce that. And other than that, I see nothing that I need to add. How about staff? Can we break off after an hour and a half? Is that illegal? I'll entertain a motion then.
I move that we adjourn.
I'll second it. Any discussion?
No, sir.
At 10:25 and 57 seconds. We're adjourned.